This is the tale of a Renaissance girl group so ahead of their time they didn't just perform, they rewrote the rules. The Concerto delle Donne was Ferrara's secret weapon, an ensemble of jaw droppingly talented women who turned private court concerts into prestige events, complete with dazzling harmonies, 6-hour rehearsals, and some truly dramatic court politics. If you want to experience the full ride from Frotola to finale, skip ahead to the next section. But if you're just here for the highlights, don't worry, I've got you. Here's what you need to know. In 1580, Duke Alfonso II d'Este formed a professional female vocal ensemble for his new wife, Margherita. But this wasn't just a romantic gesture, it was a cultural flex. These women weren't amateurs. They were paid, trained, and expected to perform. Their style was unlike anything audiences had heard. Ornate, expressive, and technically wild. They turned the Ferrara court into a musical trendsetter, and composers from all over Italy and beyond took notice. Even after the court collapsed in 1597, their influence lingered. Copycat ensembles emerged across Italy. Their style helped usher in a new musical era, and centuries later, historians are still piecing together how a handful of women with voices like lightning and court gowns to match helped change music history. Let's rewind a little. Northern Italy in the Renaissance was a total hotspot for music. Picture wealthy courts run by families with names like Medici, Este, and Gonzaga, all throwing gold at composers to outdo each other's playlists. Secular music was having a moment, and at first, everyone was vibing with something called the frotola, kind of chill pre-madrigal jam. But by the 1520s, the frotola was out, and the madrigal was in. Think more emotion, more complexity, and more drama. It became the genre of the century. In fact, music historian J. Peter Burkholder basically said that through the madrigal, Italy became the Beyonce of Renaissance music. Not his exact words, but you get it. Ironically, the first big madrigal composers weren't even Italian. They were imports, mostly Franco-Flemish, and went by the bougie name Oltremontani, meaning those from over the mountains. By the 1570s, though, Ferrara was cultivating its own sound and its own singers. Duke Alfonso II d'Este, always ready to throw a secret concert, had assembled a little group of female vocalists to perform madrigals for his Musica Secreta events. It's unclear if these women were pros or glorified party guests, but they were noble, they were stylish, and they were part of the court scene. Members included Lucrezia and Isabella Bendidio, sisters of course, Leonora Sanvitali, and Vittoria Bentivoglio. There was also one token bass guy, Brancaccio, basically the Renaissance version of one man in a room full of sopranos. This pre-1580 era laid the groundwork. It was chamber music, yes, but also something more. The beginning of a genre-defining shift, just waiting for a professional high-drama upgrade. So here's the twist. The Concerto delle Donne wasn't rolled out with fireworks and a press release. Nope. In classic Renaissance fashion, it just appeared. Like, oh, these incredibly talented women singing perfect madrigals in the corner. Oh yeah, just something we're trying out. Duke Alfonso II d'Este formally kicked things off in 1580, but rather than announcing a shiny new girl group, he let the ladies quietly infiltrate his Musica Secreta concerts. It started as a low-key vibe shift, then suddenly the whole thing was ladies only, vocals only, and next level. This wasn't just a vanity project either. The Duke had recently married Margherita Gonzaga d'Este, young, musically inclined, and probably bored out of her mind in Ferrara. The ensemble was meant to keep her entertained and boost the Duke's cultural status because nothing says power couple like a personal choir of soprano queens. Thanks to Margherita's sway with her brother in law, who just happened to be a cardinal, as one does, the group even had access to church properties like the San Vito convent, meaning rehearsal space with divine acoustics. The group's first recorded performance was November 20th, 1580. 1 month later, Brancaccio, remember him from the earlier group, showed up thinking, well, I still got it. By Carnival 1581, the ladies were performing regularly and stealing every show. Now, here's the funny part. To people watching from the sidelines, this felt brand new. No one really linked this glittering vocal force to the amateur noblewomen of the 1570s, but modern music historians are like, oh, please, this was a slow build. The earlier crew laid the groundwork. This was the final form. Italian court culture was also playing 4D chess. Music wasn't just entertainment, it was politics. Hosting the best ensemble became a power move. No war needed when your soprano can hit a high E with a trill. So let's talk lineup. The headliner was Laura Ferrara, a star soprano with enough talent to convince the Duke to literally request her as part of his wife's bridal squad from Mantua. She wasn't just window dressing, her solo singing had critics swooning. She was joined by Livia d'Arco from a noble but not wildly influential family, and Anna Guarini, a daughter of Renaissance poet Giovanni Battista Guarini, a man who not only hyped the girls in his verses but also wrote ballet scripts for them. Actual Renaissance ballets. Talent ran in the family. There's also the famous Molza, who may or may not have sung with the group. Scholars still argue about it, but even if she didn't take the stage, she was definitely involved, either as a vocal coach or a consultant. That is, until 1589 when her affair with the composer went public, and she was booted faster than you can say scandal. As for Brancaccio, that one bass, he was fired in 1583 for insubordination. After that, the ensemble stayed all female, though they did occasionally sing alongside male guests, but cameos only. Officially, the ladies were ladies in waiting to Duchess Margherita. But let's be real, they were hired for their pipes, not their posture. Despite their class status, they weren't exactly inner circle unless their voices could dazzle. And dazzle they did. Their backgrounds varied. Ferrara was the daughter of a wealthy merchant. D'Arco had noble roots but low clout. Molsa came from a prominent artistic family. So, not nobility, but not peasants either. Kind of the Renaissance version of you went to Juilliard, but also do birthday parties. Now, there was a rumor. One musicologist floated the idea that these women might have doubled as courtly companions, but there's zero evidence for that. And their marriage records and fat dowries suggest the court valued them more as artists than as objects of scandal. And speaking of pay, they got paid. The Ferrara, for example, made 300 scudi a year, which was very decent. She also got her own palace apartment for herself, her husband, and her mom, adorable, and received a 10,000 scudi dowry when she got married. That is main character energy. And while they could all play instruments, lute, harp, viol, their main focus was vocals. And not just your average Renaissance church choir vocals. We're talking melismas, ornamentation, fire runs. Think less Ave Maria and more vocal Olympics. This shift towards vocal acrobatics started with men, basses like Brancaccio, but by the end of the century, high, agile soprano singing was the thing. The girl group was riding the wave perfectly. Luzzaschi was the creative mastermind, writing showpieces for the group and playing harpsichord like a Renaissance Max Martin. And Fiorini, the maestro di cappella, aka the head music guy, supervised the entire court's musical direction and joined in on the lute. But despite all the glamour, Ferrara's golden age didn't last. Duke Alfonso II, in his ongoing quest for an heir, married 3 times, but died childless in 1597. His cousin Cesar inherited the duchy, but there was a catch. Ferrara was technically church property, and the Pope was ready to collect. In 1598, Ferrara got annexed into the Papal States via some extremely unsubtle maneuvering by Pope Clement VIII, and the Este family packed their bags, the court scattered, and the Concerto delle Donne disbanded. And for centuries, their story was mostly forgotten, scattered in dusty archives, and until an Italian lit critic, Angelo Solerti, rediscovered the receipts in the early 1900s. And suddenly, the tale of the ladies who sang Ferrara into fame was back on the map. If you've ever been to a party where everyone awkwardly takes turns picking songs until someone just takes over the playlist and saves the vibe, that's what the Concerto delle Donne did to the Ferrara music scene. Before the Concerto delle Donne, Ferrara's musica segreta concerts were kind of like Renaissance jam sessions. You'd show up, maybe sing a little, maybe just listen. Everyone passed around the part books like a wine bottle. It was very much for the musicians, by the musicians. Enter the girl group. Suddenly, the vibe shifted from friends in a salon to sit down and be amazed. The roles stopped rotating. The audience wasn't in the music anymore. They were now simply allowed to witness it, and only if they had the right connections. These were not public concerts. They were ultra exclusive, invite-only affairs for select dignitaries, like the Russian ambassador who reportedly attended in 1581. Diplomacy? No. Diva Appreciation Tour. These ladies didn't just roll out of bed and sing. They trained constantly. We're talking up to 6 hours a day, with rehearsals that covered not just the notes, but also eye movements and hand gestures. Basically, pre-Beyonce level choreography, but with harpsichords. Sometimes they sight read, sometimes they memorized, and sometimes they danced in full drag as part of the Balletto delle Donne, a sister group of female dancers known for cross-dressing and generally blurring all lines of courtly expectations. Gender, performance, the Renaissance was experimenting. Also notable, aside from the occasional Brancaccio cameo, these were all female sopranos. No falsettists, no castrati, none of that, which is wild considering this was just before the castrato craze that would dominate early opera. In fact, Monteverdi's L'Orfeo, written in 1607, featured 4 castrato roles, but in Ferrara, the Concerto delle Donne proved you didn't need to mutilate a man to hit a high C. You could just, hire a woman. That said, the concerts weren't always received with full attention. Sometimes guests would play cards mid-performance and still be expected to gasp on cue. One ambassador from Tuscany even complained that he was forced to multitask, praise the singers, and win a round of baccarat. Brutal. Meanwhile, Alfonso, ever the music nerd, would ditch the social part altogether, go sit under a tree, and follow along with the score like it was his favorite podcast transcript. Now about their sound. It was a whole new world. Before this, the usual formula was one show-offy voice singing ornamented lines, while instruments did the heavy lifting. But Concerto delle Donne said, what if 3 sopranos all do that at the same time? The result was dizzying, dazzling explosion of melodic lines. Passaggi, lots of quick little notes crammed into one, cadenzi, high drama finale notes, and tirati, sassy little runs down the scale. It was vocal wizardry, but completely rehearsed and notated. No guesswork. This was coordinated chaos, choreographed to the letter. Improvisation still existed, especially in solo moments, but for their ensemble work, think precision, harmonies, tight timing, and enough vocal flexibility to make a modern R&B singer jealous. Between 1581 and 1586, Ferrara became the musical version of a Michelin star test kitchen. Every composer and poet was obsessed with writing for these women. Vittorio Baldini, the ducal printer, basically built his career on their music. His first books were packed with new madrigals by Italy's top talent. And over in Venice, a publication even included a madrigal with capitalized letters spelling out the women's names. Guarini, Ferrara, D'Arco, Mozza. Subtle? No. Iconic? Yes. The music was written for high voices and big drama, full of fast notes, emotional peaks, and flashy moments. There were two distinct styles. The luxuriant style of the 1580s, short, clever madrigals, often set to the poetry of hometown heroes like Tasso and Guarini, and the seconda pratica style of the 1590s, more harmonically wild, looser with the rules, and basically the spiritual mother of early Baroque. The group didn't just change performance, they reshaped how composers wrote music. The group's primary composer was the director of divas. He crafted both early and late styles, and in 1601 he published Madrigali per cantare e sonare, a collection that basically bottled the magic of the ladies' performances, and it's considered the blueprint of their sound. Luzzaschi's music played with contrast, melodic themes rather than strict harmonic progressions, thick polyphony mixed with surprise leaps and dissonances that felt more emotional outburst than polite counterpoint. It was edgy, and it worked. He wasn't the only one writing for them, though. From composers to poets, they became a whole cultural feedback loop of female performance, male admiration, and artistic synergy. So were the Concerto delle Donne the first women to sing in Ferrara? No. Were they the first to absolutely dominate the conversation and reshape the music world as we know it? Oh yeah. And before them, female musicians at court were more background noise, charming, talented, quaint, sure, but rarely seen as professionals. The Concerto delle Donne flipped that script. According to scholar Anthony Newcomb, these women went from musical obscurity to the literal top of the profession. Suddenly, women weren't just singing, they were getting trained, they were getting paid, and they were getting written for. And all of that without having to be someone's wife or daughter first. By 1600, a woman could realistically pursue a music career full stop. Thanks to the ripple effects of Ferrara's sopranos, female ensembles started popping up across Italy, and composers began tailoring their music specifically for women's voices, high, virtuosic, and expressive. A whole new type of professional musician was born. This challenged more than just musical norms. It poked a big, glittery hole in the Renaissance belief that women weren't capable of great public deeds. They could be great. They just needed a platform, or in this case, a harpsichord and 6 hours of rehearsal. What's wild is that Duke Alfonso never really promoted the music outside his little circle. No public concerts, no mass publication, and yet even after his court collapsed in 1597, the sound of the Concerto delle Donne kept echoing across Europe for another 50 years. Soon, every northern Italian court wanted a girl group of its own, having a concerto become kind of a status symbol, like installing a custom wine cellar or hiring your own astrologer. It was prestige on a platter. Their influence reshaped the madrigal and nudged the entire genre towards the seconda pratica, aka the freer, bolder, more emotional wave that birthed early Baroque music. And Alfonso's court was suddenly the place to be. And the ladies were the reason. Their fame stretched from Italy to southern Germany, and even German composers gushed about the new Italian style in 1619, nearly 40 years after the group's peak. So, yes, they were performers, but they were also propaganda, elegant, powerful symbols of wealth, taste, and Renaissance cultural dominance. And of course, the copycats came flooding in. Over in Florence, Caccini, yes, that guy again, launched his own family based girl group, backed by the Medici, and even took the show on the road to Paris. Caccini's daughter, Francesca Caccini, would go on to compose and perform in the Ferrara inspired style herself, becoming one of the most successful female composers of the early 17th century. The Medici wanted one, the Orsini wanted one, the Gonzaga had one, and even Ferrara itself had a petty palace-side rival. That's right. Lucrezia d'Este, Alfonso's own sister, created her own version of the group right inside Castello Estense, likely out of spite. After all, her lover was murdered by Alfonso's goons right after Margherita became the new duchess. So yeah, the vibes were off. By the mid 1600s, the Concerto delle Donne had become passé. Its florid soprano showpieces now considered a bit vintage, but its spirit lived on in composers like Barbara Strozzi and in artifacts like l'Arpa di Laura, the actual harp once played by Ferrara herself, now sitting like a holy relic in the Galleria Estense. They came, they sang, they slayed, and they changed the music world forever. No falsetto required. The Concerto delle Donne didn't just perform, they redefined performance. They took music out of the drawing room and onto center stage, made female virtuosity something to aspire to, and forced the musical world to raise its expectations. Their story has all the drama of a great opera: political rivalry, secret rehearsals, court scandals, and soprano supremacy. But what lingers centuries later is the sound. The high, florid, fierce sound of women singing not for their families or their husbands, but for the art itself. Ferrara may have lost its independence, and the Renaissance may have given way to the Baroque, but the legacy of these women lives on. Whenever a vocalist pushes a phrase a little further, or a girl walks on stage knowing the space is hers to command, they sang, the world listened, and it never quite forgot.